If you need a job right now, then listen up. Amazon is now hiring for full-time warehouse positions in Carteret and Edison. Earn top pay rates and benefits from day one at a job you'll love with a shift that fits your life. Tap now or visit amazon.com/Edison jobs to apply today.
Welcome into Week 7 of the NFL season, which means it's another week of the Consistently Cashin podcast here at BigGuyFantasySports.com. We are a proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. So not just, this podcast and not just the Profit Like a Tot podcast that Bob Lung and I do, but check out all the other great podcasts over there, all the other great content going on. And also, you can use promo code CC2019 for $5 off your VIP subscription at BigGuyFantasySports.com, so you can get all of the great content over there. With me, as normally, as usually, as typically, as every Saturday, it is Ron Rigney on Twitter at TheRealMade. So Ron, how are things going for you down south?
Well, the rest of the country is welcoming in fall, and they have the turning of the leaves and the chill in the air, and you get your sweaters out. And so we've decided in South Florida this weekend, hey, let's have a tropical storm and let's welcome in fall that way. So we have rain and wind, and it's just all out nasty outside. So that's what we're doing.
It's calm here in the Carolinas. We're doing okay. I believe that that tropical storm that you're getting could push its way up towards us a little bit, but hopefully it's nothing like some hurricanes in recent months. But try to stay dry down there. Hopefully the weather doesn't impact too many games this weekend, as well as friends and families' houses down in the area. But with this week, with Consistently Cashin, we're going to go over the usual suspects here. We're going to talk about some games that we're targeting and avoiding, and then we're going to get into some actual player talk. So our favorite high-priced guy of the week, mid-priced guy, low-priced guy. Then we'll get into the Week 7 building block. That's just somebody we can't live without this week in our lineups. And then, of course, everybody's favorite segment, the bold prediction for Week 7. So we'll get started at the top with the games that we're targeting. We see a lot of fantasy goodness, a lot of fantasy potential, a lot of players that we want in our DFS lineup. So, Ron, I'll let you start with the games you're targeting for Week 7.
This week was a little different than the rest of them when it comes to looking at these categories we always do up at the top here, because I feel like there's pieces to be had from just about every game, and I don't necessarily feel like I'm really stacking in on just one game. So the one that I went ahead and went with, because the one stack that I do have across my lineups is that Jacoby Brissett, T.Y. Hilton stack. So I'm going to go Colts Texans, and I think this has the potential to definitely put some points up on the board. There's a lot to like about T.Y. Hilton and the Colts coming off a bye. Marlon Mack is back. Darius Leonard's back on defense. I know that doesn't affect us offensively here. That affects me as a Colts fan. I like to see that. But you got a 47.5 total across the board. I think it has the potential to creep up over that a little bit. I'd like to see the Houston Texans offense getting going. I know you would like to see that as well in the showdown of our teams here. I'd like to see Watson to Hopkins for some of my seasonal purposes, more so the DFS. But I really feel good about that Brissett Hilton stack. The other game that I put up here that I was having a hard time distinguishing between the two is that Cardinals Giants game. And I think that, even though I don't necessarily have, I don't think, a piece from that lineup or that game except Evan Engram, I do like Kyler Murray there. I do like Larry Fitzgerald there. I think that the Cardinals running backs could put up some points. You got Saquon Barkley coming back. So I think there's a lot to like here as far as some pieces in that game as well.
I think you're right, and that is one thing that should not go not discussed here, but Texans-Colts, so it is a big matchup here within the walls of the Big Guy Fantasy Sports headquarters that doesn't exist, but, big matchup here for us. So I agree there. I think there's some fantasy goodness in that matchup. For me, just looking at my lineups, interestingly enough, I have quite a few pieces in a game that has a combined record between the two teams of 2-10, and that's the Jaguars-Bengals. I have a few pieces in that game. Cardinals-Giants, you can make a case for quite a few players, so I'm certainly in on that. But another one that I really like, I liked it more until the Rams traded for Jalen Ramsey, even though he might only play in limited action. But Falcons-Rams, that Falcons defense stinks, so I really like Jared Goff and like Cooper Kupp and maybe some of those other receivers Atlanta struggles against running back, so Todd Gurley has some merit this week. And from the Atlanta side of the football, Austin Hooper just catches too many passes each week to simply avoid or ignore anymore at this point. Julio will deal with some Ramsey, but then again, Ramsey was dealing with a very, very serious back injury in Jacksonville. He couldn't play. He just couldn't play. And I mean, he's a guy that wants to be out there, and he loved his time in Jacksonville. So we'll have to see if that back can magically clear up. But he is expected to play. So Julio will see his fair share of Jalen Ramsey, and I'm not too much of a fan of that. Games we're avoiding this week. So, Ron, I'll let you jump in first. The games in Week 7 that maybe you just find it too low scoring, that you don't like anybody, or maybe there's just nobody at a price point that you see suitable for your lineups.
Well, like I said, there's I think a piece or two that's useful in just about every game this week. But the one that I had the hardest time finding useful pieces in, and I actually had a conversation with a buddy of mine about this last night because he was asking me about, he had a quarterback question. He was asking me about Phillip Rivers, so I'm going to go with this Chargers-Titans game. You've got Ryan Tannehill starting at quarterback for the Titans, and I don't know necessarily if that gives me any more confidence for their offense over Marcus Mariota running it. Could be some Derrick Henry production here. He might be the lone bright spot here. I'm a little sketchy on that Chargers offense, though. They've kind of sputtered the last couple of weeks. Keenan Allen has not hauled in the targets like we're used to seeing him get. Now, Hunter Henry's kind of shined a little bit, so maybe he on the Chargers side could be the guy. It looks like Melvin Gordon's still trying to knock the rust off a little bit. So I'm not that I don't like these guys. I think yearly, obviously, you got to have some of these guys in your lineup. But overall, from the daily standpoint, I just didn't see a lot of value to be had in this game, and a lot of certainty to be had in this game. The only thing I could see maybe is if you're going to go with a GPP lineup and you want to throw just an ultra boomer bust dart, throw Ryan Tannehill in your lineup, and it costs absolutely nothing to get him in there. But for what we're doing, I think I'm going to stay away from that game first and foremost.
I'm right there with you. I have no exposure to that game. I just can't get anybody in there. Wasn't very interested in it. Same with the Vikings-Lions. I really like Dalvin Cook. Just couldn't end up squeezing him in there. And then, those are really the two ones that I just couldn't get anybody in. Most other games, I could find a piece or two that I liked and could fit in my lineup. Those two games, I just had a real problem with trying to get guys in there. We'll move away from the games here and get into some player-specific talk here. So, Ron, I'll let you go ahead here. Obviously, we do have the Consistently Cashin article over at BigGuyFantasySports.com where multiple players and their outlook for Week 7 are written up in that article there, but you will need to be a VIP subscriber to check that out. So promo code CC2019 gets you $5 off your VIP subscription at BigGuyFantasySports.com. But Ron, of all the guys we wrote up, all the guys in your lineup, who's your favorite high-priced guy of Week 7?
Well, you mentioned Dalvin Cook, so I won't dive too deeply into him. And I like him, and I don't mind his price. It just feels like there was too many other mid-priced options that I wanted to go with, and it was kind of hard to get him in there. So I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp as my guy for this one, just because. And he is $7,800, so he's not ultra high price, but he is at the top part there. And I think that when you look at what the Rams have been doing, Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp has been the guy. He's been the target hog. He's been kind of the Keenan Allen to the Jared Goff on there. And so he's done it week in and week out. Now he's coming off a week where he only had 4 catches for 17 yards, and by far his lowest output of the year. But before that, heading in against some mediocre defenses at best, posted 20 DFS points on FanDuel the 3 weeks previous to that. So, and obviously last week too, he went against the Niners, and the Niners, we know, you might hear their name quite a bit in our lineups this week as well. That defense is shut down. It's probably the best in the league right now, right there with New England, and going to be tough to get anything going against them. But this lineup, you mentioned that Falcon defense, especially that pass defense. Jared Goff, you mentioned him as well, but I think Cooper Kupp's going to have a field day against this defense.
I'm right there with you. I completely agree. For me, the high-priced guy of the week, I'm a little worried at first with this, to be honest. Only because attacking this sort of defense typically isn't the most fantasy-friendly here. But I'm going to go with Michael Thomas, and I'm going with Michael Thomas for the sole reason of the war of attrition. With Alvin Kamara out, Jared Cook is out. Thomas is about one of the healthy, reliable playmakers that they have with that offense still. And even with Teddy Bridgewater, he's still seeing basically double-digit targets each week. He had 12 last week, 13 the week before. Just had 9 the week before. But he's so efficient with those targets. I think he's going to be fine against the Chicago defense. So I'm going Michael Thomas, and I'm just going to hope that they throw the ball enough that Thomas stays involved. And the fact when they do throw the ball, they can't just dump off screens to Alvin Kamara every time. Might have to get Thomas more involved in some quick hitters. So I believe he will be involved early and often. We'll move to the mid-price play of the week. And Ron, I'll let you handle this first.
So I'm going to go on this one in a game where there's not a ton to like, but like I said, there's a few pieces here, and that's Tevin Coleman. And Tevin Coleman, and we know that they're going to run it with a committee. But the thing I like about Tevin Coleman is in the last few weeks he's had 16 and 18 carries. He's not real effective in the passing game just yet. Maybe that'll change. But obviously they're going against Washington, and Washington and Miami are right there. You like almost anybody going against them on offense. I like the fact that Washington has allowed over 600 yards on the ground. They've allowed 4 scores. And also like the fact that Tevin Coleman's gotten in the end zone each of the last 2 weeks, and I look for him to do that again this week. But over on FanDuel at 6,200, I like him as far as that at that lower end of that mid-priced zone that we talk about.
Yeah, I'm right there with you too. I think that's a great play for me. Looking at it here, I really want to go with a quarterback, but I'll save him for my bold prediction at the end. So I will go with a guy that I have him every week. I don't know how it happens. I just end up with him all the time. And for me, it's Leonard Fournette. Can't quit this guy. Just can't quit him. 100% consistent. Workload's there. Bengals stink. I think that's all you need to know. Leonard Fournette, week 7. There you go. Favorite low price guy of the week, Ron, where are you going here?
I'm going here, and when you look across my lineups, it's pretty easy to see who my favorite low-price option of the week is, and that's Allen Lazard for Green Bay. Anybody that has hands that can catch passes in Green Bay is questionable or out. We know Devontae Adams is already out. Scantling, Allison are both questionable. I haven't really seen any updates on them. I'm not real optimistic about it. But when Lazard came in last week off the bench, he caught 4 for 65 and a score against Detroit. They've got Oakland coming to town. Oakland's not much better against the pass. So he might be just the last man standing. He's got a pretty good guy throwing him the football, so I have a lot of confidence in him. But sitting there at $4,500, the upside there I think is tremendous for that price point.
I completely agree. And I'll look here. I don't have him in any of my lineups, but I completely understand why you want to go there. Again, that war of attrition is a real thing. And the Green Bay receivers certainly aren't winning it right now. For me, looking at the low price guy of the week, I don't really have too many guys that are super low price in my lineup, but the one I do have, I guess, and he's one of my cheapest ones, which he shouldn't be, is John Brown. I really like what he can do against Miami. He racks up air yards. Josh Allen has a big arm. Miami has no real playmakers left on defense, so I really do like John Brown this week and what he can do against that crappy Miami defense. Sure, the Buffalo defense is going to stymie the Miami offense, but that doesn't mean Brown still can't get a few receptions. And who knows, by halftime, might have 100 yards and a touchdown just because that Miami defense is that bad. And he should move around enough that he avoids Xavier Howard. But even so, I think Howard wants out of Miami, and he's kind of just biding time until he gets traded. So we'll go ahead here. Week 7 building block. Who is it for you this week? Who is just in your lineups? You just can't seem to avoid them.
Well, I'm gonna warn you ahead of time, Colby. I'm gonna throw some stats out here that they're probably gonna hurt a little bit.
Okay.
So just prepare yourself. Okay, but they are the reality. Mm-hmm. My building block in all my lineups is that T.Y. Hilton, Jacoby Brissett stack, and main reasons for that is they already have a good rapport. Like I said, I love them coming off a bye week. T.Y. Hilton is back healthy coming off the bye week as well. And Houston is in the top 10 in fantasy points allowed both to the quarterback position and the wide receiver position. They've allowed 88 grabs to wide receivers, 8 touchdowns, and they're right there in the top 10 as well with points allowed to the quarterback. They've allowed 11 touchdown passes. So I think for what they cost you, it allows you to get a lot of those other mid-priced options in there. Plus, I think that there's a real opportunity for, like I said, for a lot of points to be scored in this game.
No, I understand. Hilton's a Houston killer. That's just how it is. I have some exposure to Hilton as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Houston did say they're going to try something different to slow down Hilton, which is great. It's only been 7 years, So it's about time we're trying something new. So we'll have to see what happens. Honestly, I'm not quite sure what exactly they're going to do. My guess is either going to be they'll put rookie Lonnie Johnson on him to press at the line so that Hilton doesn't get his free 15 yards of running before he makes any contact with any Houston defender. Or they'll just leave Jonathan Joseph on him if he plays and just have safety help over the top.
Or they'll hide his helmet. I heard they might hide his helmet as well.
Or that. You never know. It might be a little bit tougher just because the game's not in Houston. So
right, it's not at home. So.
They don't have access to all the, the nooks and crannies of the stadium that no one else knows about. But yeah, so I'm fine with Hilton. I like him. I like the stack too. Hilton's he should be a very popular play this week. For me, my building block, and believe it or not, it's going to be Jared Goff. That Atlanta defense is that bad that even with Goff's struggles here, I think we're going to be just fine. Goff 67% consistent on the year, 15th in total points, so a little bit of a disappointment. But here's the thing. Looking over at ProFootballFocus.com, their grading metric for defensive pass rush has Atlanta as a league. They are the league average team in terms of pass rush, which when you watch the games, that even seems high. When you look at their coverage grade, they are second to last, and they're only a little bit above the New York Giants. So they don't generate a good pass rush. They can't cover. I'm looking at their individual players' metrics, and nobody ranks within the top 50 in the NFL. Or excuse me, one person does, and he's number 48, Adrian Claiborne, in terms of pressure generated. And here's what you need to know with Jared Goff. When he's under pressure this year, 43.4% completion percentage and a 65.0 passer rating. Now, when he's kept clean, which most quarterbacks tend to have better ratings when they're clean and not, under duress, Goff has a 74.8% completion percentage and a 91.5 NFL passer rating. So there is a big discrepancy with Jared Goff in terms of when, his production when he's kept clean and when he's under duress. And then also you just look at Jared Goff this season. In home games, he's fared much better, minus last week against San Francisco. But coming into this point in home games, 23 fantasy points, 29 fantasy points. In road games, 12, 19, and 22. So he's been better at home. He's got a great matchup. His jersey should remain clean for most of the afternoon. That's why I'm all in on Jared Goff this week. But Ron will go ahead here, and we'll go to your Week 7 bold prediction.
You've heard his name mentioned quite a few times by both of us. We both obviously like this guy. Have him in a lot of lineups this week. In his game back from injury, off the bye week, at home, against a bad Houston pass defense, T.Y. Hilton goes 8 grabs, 150 yards, 2 scores.
As long as Houston wins, I'm okay with that. As long as Houston wins, I'm okay with that. I can totally see that happening. That's just, again, Hilton is the Houston killer. That's the only way to really look at it at this point. So yeah, I'm right there with you on that one. My bold prediction here is a different player, and it might not seem that bold up front. However, I'm going to warn you that it is, and you can just take my word for it because I said so. But looking here, my bold prediction of the week actually involves Oakland tight end Darren Waller. And here's the thing with Waller. He hasn't found the end zone all year. That's the first thing. You look at the Green Bay defense in terms of touchdowns allowed to opposing tight ends this season, and they've only allowed 1. They've been pretty good against the tight end to date. However, Tyrell Williams is out. Oakland's a little banged up. And Darren Waller has such a rapport with Derek Carr already that the workload is there, and it could increase this week. You look at Darren Waller's recent games, the former receiver out of Georgia Tech. Targets-wise, he only had 5 last week, but so that was or back in week 5, excuse me. But before that, 8, 14, 7, and 8. So the targets are there. The foot injury shouldn't keep him out of action. I believe he's going to play, so he'll be out there. Green Bay's only allowed 1 touchdown to opposing tight ends. That number is going to bump up to 2, if not 3. And Waller's finally going to find the end zone for the first time this season. Not to mention, he's going to go over 100 yards and do it as well. So this will be the second time all year he surpassed 100 receiving yards, and the first time that he's found the end zone. Darren Waller for me, Week 7. So you have T.Y. Hilton, I have Darren Waller. Both of those guys are in our lineups here or in the Consistently Cashin article at BigGuyFantasySports.com. Once again, you will need to be a VIP subscriber to read all of the content in that article. So use promo code CC2019 to get $5 off. And with that $5 you saved, put it in a FanDuel lineup, turn 5 into 10. Next week, turn 10 into 20, and just keep riding the train. So before we wrap it up here, Ron, any final parting shots for Week 7?
So enjoy Week 7. If you're in South Florida, stay dry and go Colts.
Okay, that was good. I certainly agree with everyone staying dry, stay safe. I will switch your sentiments there at the end and say go Texans. We'll have to see what happens here, but it should be a fun Week 7. Hopefully everybody gets what they want. Obviously, Ron and I both can't. One of us has to budge here. But I'm sure he's a nice enough guy that he'll budge so that the Texans can move to 5-2 and establish a stranglehold on that AFC South. But
don't forget it's the NFL. We could have a tie as well. It's possible.
We could. Actually, Houston and Indy would have tied last year if your coach didn't go for fourth down. They just would have punted because Houston surely wasn't going to move the football. But that is it for the Consistently Cashin for Week 7. We wish you all the best. Stay consistent. And if you do win, go ahead and send us a screenshot of those lineups. We'd love to see what you ended up playing and what you used from our article here and just the consistency concept in general in your DFS lineups this week. Whether you're playing on FanDuel, DraftKings, SuperDraft, if you do props over at Thrive, whatever you do, we wish you all the best. Good luck, and as always, stay consistent.
Big Tobacco lied for generations, causing millions of deaths. Vaping is Big Tobacco's newest scam. They're using e-cigarettes to get you addicted, but they'll never get me. Show them you're incorruptible. Go to incorruptible.us.
Loyalty is all about being there. Day in, day out. So AAA thanks you for being there with loyalty rewards. Like when you get savings on AAA auto insurance just for being a AAA member. And when you switch to AAA auto insurance, you could save more based on how long you've been a AAA member and how long you've had your current insurance. Insurance that's not just insurance. Learn more about AAA auto insurance and loyalty rewards. Click now or visit AAA.com/insurance.